Welcome back to the Mike and Ike Show, and no, not the candy. It is a show with Michael Badgley and Isaac Rochelle. And today we're just going to be chopping it up. It's been a while since we've been on the show, and we're ready to bring it back.
Yeah, we are sorry for the mishap with us not having a show for the last couple of weeks, but to our defense, we have had hectic weeks when we had a short week into a week where we traveled to Colorado Springs and then traveled to Mexico, and then we had a bye week. So it was just kind of hectic. We did say we wanted to get podcast interviews during that time, but it ended up being just a little too tough to do it. But we're excited to get things going again. And I think today we've always kind of interviewed other people, but today you'll kind of get a chance to learn about both Isaac and myself. So I think it's going to be a good one for you guys to reboot yourselves into the show.
Well, first off, for everybody listening, go check out the YouTube video, because we got a nice little background going on. Nice Christmas vibes. It is Christmas. My mic is green. Badge's mic is red. And it's about that time of year. And, again, you can find us on all the platforms. I didn't mention that earlier, but we'll still be on everything. So you can find us on everything. Check us out. But like he said, we're gonna interview each other, because I feel like we've spent a lot of time interviewing other people, and I'm hoping that people are super curious about our stories.
I think so. I think we got some cool stories.
Let's give the people what they want. So we'll start off with Badge.
Oh, man, here we go.
Okay, I can't do the intro like Badge does the intro, but I'll give you guys a little teaser. So Badge is from Summit, New Jersey. He went to high school at Summit, the Summit.
Shout out.
I don't have the juice like Badge, but Badge, he's a Jersey guy through and through. Anybody that knows him as a Jersey boy. For some reason, he doesn't think he has a Jersey accent.
I don't.
You do. And he's been with the Chargers for 2 years now, got picked up last year. He was a huge contributor for us last year and this year. And I think he's the all-around locker room guy. So, Badge, let's just start off with you taking us back to the days where you weren't just the kicker, where you were the elite athlete that you claimed to be.
So you want me to take it all the way back to when I first started playing sports?
Did you guys hear that? He goes, meaning he was never an elite athlete. I'm glad you brought it up.
I never said that. I was just asking how far you wanted me to take this eliteness back.
Take us back to the beginning of the sports career, because for the listeners, again, Badge did beat me one-on-one in basketball, which I'm pretty disappointed about. But take us back to the days where you were just picking up basketballs, playing, and just starting your sports, I guess, career and journey.
Well, first, let me start off by saying this. I never really did play organized basketball. It was always just pick up. So for me to beat you is even better.
It was embarrassing.
So all the way back, growing up in a small town like Summit, it was always to me just kind of like a small knit community, but mine was based off of sports. So the first organized sport that I played was soccer. I mean, that was just
really
running around, chasing a ball around and trying to score through the cones.
I guess it's not surprising, though. I mean, you're a kicker.
But
feet.
Soccer didn't really last long, because the sports I played growing up were soccer, hockey, baseball, and lacrosse, and then football didn't start until like 4th grade. So I was just playing sports every season I could. Sometimes there was 2 sports in one season. But growing up, finally getting to 4th grade, where I kind of called it quits on playing soccer because I was so excited to play football, because football was one of my favorite sports.
Right.
So to start playing football in 4th grade, and like every other 4th grader back in 2004, it was Oklahoma drill, hit somebody. Everyone just wants to run around and hit something.
I mean, that's the classic. I mean, it's not football anymore now for little kids, but for us, that's what we knew.
That's
four
that's
drills in Oklahoma.
Yeah. And I played. I was like the quarterback for the team first, and I was quarterback all the way up until like 7th, 8th grade. Then I switched to running back, and then in high school it all changed. But my favorite sport growing up, as you guys might know from earlier episodes, is hockey.
No doubt, you've mentioned it so many times.
Hockey was my favorite. The locker room, everything about it, and that was by far in high school. That was my favorite state championship to win.
Let me ask you this. You made a lot of field goals in the NFL, but what is a memory that you think back to playing football when you were younger that you're like, okay, I felt like a beast, young Herschel Walker. I don't know who the famous Summit running back is, but Were you scoring touchdowns like that?
No doubt. My favorite athlete back then to watch football-wise, especially with Madden 04 being so big, was Mike Vick.
What a beast.
So one memory I remember was in 5th or 4th grade. It was obviously everyone's just lining up and hitting each other, but
just smacking into each other.
But we had one game a year in 4th grade.
That's it.
That was it. It was just practice, and then there was an organized game once a year, and then you're done.
What are you, just scrimmaging for 6 months and then having one game?
Yeah, we had one game in 4th grade.
That's
and
crazy.
then it became more games in 5th grade because it got more organized and everyone was more into it. But in 4th grade, the memory I have is we just had this quarterback sneak. And I just remember taking the quarterback sneak.
Give it to Badge.
From under center. And I just took off for like 70 yards. And it was like the first play of the game in 4th grade. And I just remember that specific memory of football and what I thought made it so great. You know,
were you juking people, or were you just hanging out, running down the field wide open?
I was just out running everybody.
Okay, so now you're fast.
I didn't start juking guys until later in the game.
So you said your first love is hockey, no doubt.
Yeah.
Was hockey incorporated? I mean, I don't know, because, again, everybody knows I'm from Georgia. We didn't have hockey. So were you playing hockey, like, with football in 4th grade and middle school all the way through?
Yeah. So it was football season would start. So that's summer into fall. And then as, it got later into fall, hockey would start going. And it wasn't like high school where it's like you have to finish out a sport and then pick it up again. I was playing football and hockey at the same time. And then before you know it, I was playing baseball and hockey at the same time, and lacrosse as well as baseball and hockey. So it was just constant sports for me.
It's crazy to think about, though, because it's like, could you imagine playing? I mean, I don't know, like, how your body feels after a game or whatever, but, like, I couldn't imagine playing 2 sports right now.
It'd be tough, but it was always something I wanted to do. And the way I always looked
professionally?
at it. I don't know about professionally because that is tough, and just knowing how professional athletes are, I think it would be a knock if I were to say I could go out and do both. I mean, there's some guys that can, no doubt, and some guys that have.
Some guys.
But I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, I could go and play 2 sports professionally.
It's just crazy. The point I'm trying to make is, like, when you're a little kid, you're like, sign me up for everything.
Everything.
I know, I mean, your dad is a locker room guy from the times that I've met him and spoke to him. So he's like, sign him up for everything.
Well, that's where I learned it, because we would always hang out. He had played in a men's league in hockey. So me and my brother, we would go and watch him.
As a father, he's like going to the men's league.
Well, yeah, he was playing in a men's league over at Beacon Hill. So we would go, Peter and I, and it'd be like late 8 o'clock games on Saturday nights, and he'd be over there, and we'd be in the locker room with all the guys. And
I mean, that's hilarious.
And we didn't know
Peter is his brother, by the way.
Oh, yeah. But we didn't know any better. But, they'd be throwing around Budweisers, and they're all talking, undoing their skates. I mean, it was a locker room.
I mean, I can't imagine as a dad. It was probably just cool for him. And I know it'll be cool for me when I have kids, and you when you have kids, to sign your kid up for sports. But like I said, I know he was like, sign him up for everything.
No doubt. And he was never a dad that was like
the OD.
Exactly. There's certain fathers or parents, moms that will be over the top on their kids and how well they're doing in sports. My dad was always just, he would just let us play.
That's what he should do. So you're telling us all these stories about you being a beast in middle school, elementary school. When you got to high school, I'm reading the bio, and again, this is super off the cuff. Me and Bad just wanted to interview each other, so I'm kind of looking at his wiki page, which is way more in depth than mine is, as we're talking to him. But some of the stats not stats, but some of the information on your wiki page is crazy. You played tons of sports, which you kind of mentioned. You won a state championship in every sport.
Yeah.
What was that's kind of crazy, but what was one, you can tell us about that and get into that, but what was the journey just going from being kind of what people would consider just having fun playing sports, being that type of athlete, and then when you get in high school, it becomes a little bit more competitive. Just tell us about that.
Yeah, no doubt. Obviously, when you get into high school freshman year, we had a freshman football team. Some guys don't have that. So you're still playing with some of the same guys, but you're playing, high school, other high schools, and it's different opponents and all that, but you're still on a freshman team. And, you go up and you play in a JV game at the end of the year, but high school hockey started in the middle of October. So we're still playing football, and I didn't really set myself up a chance to really make the varsity team because I was still playing football. So when I would go over to hockey from football season, I still had to get my ice legs back.
Yeah.
So it was figuring
Ice
that
legs.
out. I mean, skating and running are two totally different things.
Summit and McDonough, Georgia are two different places.
Yeah.
Ice legs, never even heard that before.
Well, it's like getting your sea legs. You're getting them back once you come off
Either
the
way.
ocean. You've never heard
Knocking
that
the
term
rust
before.
off.
Whatever, exactly. So it was always a period of that when that had to happen, but I didn't have a chance to make the varsity team my freshman year. I was only jumped up a couple of times there, and then same thing as football and lacrosse. There was a freshman team, so you knew what you were getting into. And some of those times were the greatest times of my life. And when in hockey, my freshman year, I played on the JV team because there was no freshman team, and I didn't make the varsity yet until later on that season. But that team itself was one of the most fun experiences I've ever been a part of because I had a couple friends on the team that first year of them playing hockey.
The homies.
And they couldn't even skate. And that was one of the funniest
They
things to
couldn't
watch.
skate and chew bubblegum.
Literally, they couldn't skate. So it was funny to watch those guys go and go out there, and they could barely even keep the ice underneath their legs. So it was hysterical. But
Go ahead.
you go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, were you the beast, though? Were you the guy where they're like, all right, Badge is super good at hockey. Were you recognized as the great hockey player? If you were, you were. Talk to us.
No, at Summit, no, I wasn't the guy. We actually had this guy, Michael Nitre. And this guy.
What a name.
Yeah.
That is like an elite last name, Nitre.
Yeah, and he was this black dude that lived in Summit. He went to St. Peter's Prep originally, and then he came over to Summit his sophomore year. And this guy is one of the greatest hockey players I've ever been around, and I'll say that to the day I die.
Does he still play?
No, he doesn't. He's still in Summit. He was just one of those great athletes.
30 for 30, best that never was, Michael Nitre.
I'm not going to say that because he's a good friend. He's still in Summit. I see him all the time. But he's one of the best hockey players that I've ever seen live.
But the point is, he was, had a freakish name. That's besides the point. He was really good. You were still, based on what you say, you were still pretty good, though.
I thought I was good. I was in hockey. I was one of those. I was a fast skater, and I was athletic enough to where I could hold my own out there. Now there was better hockey players because they would play year round.
Right.
So I was jumping from football to hockey to lacrosse, and then an endless cycle in high school.
It's so crazy, bro, because I literally know nothing about hockey. You're talking about I could skate fast or I was fast, and it's like hockey. When I think of skating, I just think about stumbling around an ice rink with Allie, my girlfriend, who, for those of you who don't know, I don't even think about being athletic on the ice.
Yeah, it's embarrassing, but as
it is.
But as the years went on, I get to sophomore year, and then that's when I was on varsity football.
What a beast!
So that season, the way that started was I was just kicking. And then I go and I get my first start at cornerback. I remember that.
What is the dude from what's the classic movie?
It's not very descriptive.
The classic movie, Alabama football, old school movie.
Oh, Remember the Titans?
Remember the Titans.
That's not Alabama, that's Virginia, but okay.
Same difference. You were the liability cornerback.
No, I was on the best receiver when they put me in there. I was able to cover down. I was naturally a safety because that's what I played, but they put me at corner, and I held my own. I was a smaller kid.
Were you smacking people? Because
No.
this is the question I have for cornerbacks. I asked Easton Stick this when they put him at scout team cornerback randomly. What is the concern for you when I put you at cornerback? Is it coverage or is it making open field tackles or is it neither?
Concern?
Or what is your strength? Because those are the two big categories when I think cornerbacks.
I was able to run with anybody, but I wasn't like a huge kid in my sophomore year. I was all skin and bones, but I was able to run with guys. But if I had to come up and make a tackle, I'm just shooting the ankles, and that's still what I do today. If I'm ever trying to make a tackle, I'm just going to go shoot the legs.
I'll see. The thing is, I've doubted Badge for such a long time as an athlete because it is such the common perception in the locker room that the kickers and specialists are just not as athletic. And when I played him in basketball, which we already told you guys about, I will honestly say that you like redeemed. I mean, I don't even know the word. You like brought me back because I was doubting big time. And then he beat me and I'm like, all right, let me sit down and go somewhere because this man's nice. But he also, at some point in his career, based on Wiki, you played quarterback. You came in as the starting quarterback due to injuries, because this is interesting to me. You completed 18 for 33 passes and 7 TDs for 448 yards.
Not bad when I was thrown in there. I was first originally told not to throw. I was told if you see green, go.
You were the green light quarterback.
Yeah.
Scramble if there's space.
That was the way our offense was. We were a spread option team.
Which is super high school option.
So my good buddy Tyler, he went down. He was coming off an ACL injury from lacrosse. And he was a sick lacrosse player, long pole. He was coming off a knee injury, and then he kind of hurt his ankle. So he wasn't 100%, but he was a great quarterback. So I like being the receiver running back for him.
Right.
So we had a connection, but he goes down, and they were just looking for a guy who knew the offense.
And it was an athlete and had a little swagger, so they're like, all right.
So I knew the offense, I knew the whole playbook, so it wasn't hard to pick that up.
Right.
The only concern some of the coaches had was, can he throw the ball? And I knew in my head, just from growing up, I was like, I can throw.
You could, I mean, for high school football, you can throw good enough to hold it down.
Yeah. So they didn't expect that I would be able to. So it was always, hey, Mike, if we call a pass play, if you see green, go. And I was always, get the first down, no doubt. I'm going to do that. But my first game, we're playing Cranford, and this was my senior year when I was thrown in there. Playing Cranford, and we call pop pass to the tight end.
My man knows the play and everything.
And I drop back my 2 steps because it's a quick play. And I throw it, and it's an interception to the linebacker.
Devastating.
Linebacker. I didn't run off the field because I had to go back and play safety, but coach calls me over for a second, and he goes, all right, I guess we're not throwing that play again. I go, okay, no more throwing this game.
That's when he told you green grass, go.
Yeah. So that game ended that way. And then later we had a night game. We had a Friday night game at home, and we're playing Broadway. And I wasn't able to throw after that one interception.
Yeah.
I was like, listen, I can throw. Let me redeem myself here.
Wait, you're saying they weren't even calling? They're like, we're not throwing the ball for the rest of the game.
Yeah, that was the way our coach looked at it. It's like, we don't need to. We're going to bury teams by the run.
That's classic high school football.
Boy,
don't sleep on me.
I'm like, let's light it up here a little bit.
Boy, don't sleep on me.
So we had a good receiver, my buddy Will, on the edge, and he was wide open every play. He was a great blocking guy, but he was also an athlete where he could, get open on plays. So our coach calls in green 8, which is a read. I keep it, and I go out to the right. But we have a play off that called green 80. So it's pass play.
Nice.
So same concept, read off the fullback. I keep it, and Will is just going deep on like a corner. And I'm like, he's going to be wide open. So I call green 80. I check it at the line.
So now Badge is a young Phillip Rivers checking.
I'm checking it. I'm checking.
He's
check
like,
green
you know
80.
what? Forget the coach. Green 80, boy. Let's
check
go.
Green 80. I ride it. Will's open deep downfield. I throw him, catch him in stride, touchdown.
That's a great feeling.
I look over at our coach, and I'm just like,
you're never wrong if you're right.
Just like we scored a touchdown, so then we went and kicked the extra point, kicked off, yada yada yada.
We'll get to that. I mean, were you still kicking at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I kicked from my sophomore year, so I was just kicking my sophomore year, and then I got that corner gig. I was still kicking and playing corner, and then finally the last game of the year, they put me at running back, receiver type slot position, and my first game there was a playoff game, and they threw me the ball and I scored a touchdown.
That's crazy.
So and then in the junior year, I was just playing that slot receiver and safety position. And then third game of the year is when I took over the kickoff return and punt return duties.
And, I mean, it says here, I didn't realize, and we always joke about this on the podcast. We like to gas people up, no doubt. But I didn't realize how intense of a high school football career you had. Because it says here that you had 31 TDs in your career, 17 rushing, 7 receiving, 2 by kickoff return.
Yeah, I had 2 kickoff returns for touchdown.
Young Hester. Wow.
And a bunch of punt returns there, too.
Well, and I think this is really good for people listening because, again, like, I think people, just the normal person, holds the same opinion about specialists that a lot of NFL players do, which is that, oh, these guys aren't athletic. They just kick. A lot of people would say that kicking is a skilled position, not necessarily an athletic position.
See, I never put myself in that position. Now, when I started getting recruiting stuff, I thought I was going to go play lacrosse. Hockey was out of the question. You got to go play up in Canada, juniors. There's a whole path to it. Nick probably knows more than that because Nick actually kind of got some looks out of high school.
Good old, this is Nick DeZubnar, Cal Poly.
But yeah, hockey was out. But I thought everyone in my town went and played lacrosse somewhere, whether it was D3 or D1. We were a hotbed for lacrosse players.
So we're gonna keep it a little bit more football, but I do want you to touch a little bit about more on the lacrosse hockey career in high school, because you're obviously a beast in football. I mean, surely everybody in your high school is like, this dude's an absolute freak at everything. What did the development look like? Because ultimately, you chose to play football, but were you getting looked at for other sports?
Yeah, lacrosse. I was getting looks. Division I schools like Rutgers, Marist, Notre Dame was one of the schools.
What was the first school you said?
Rutgers.
If you guys don't hear a Jersey accent when he says Rutgers, definitely Jersey. Notre Dame was looking at you.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a great lax program.
Really good. But were
they offering you?
Well, I quickly put lacrosse to the side as soon as my junior year came, when Coach came up to me and said, "Hey, Mike, you're kind of getting some looks for kicking." And I go, "Oh, what kind of Holy Cross?
Yeah, what are we doing,
schools
Coach?"
like that. And he's like, "No, some of those schools want you to go and play a position. Like Holy Cross wanted me to come play like an actual position."
Really?
And I was like, "No way." But
you're like, Blade, no. Yeah. I'm going to go kick for 40 years in the NFL.
So I started some of the bigger schools started to come in. And they say, you got to come out to our camp, kind of show what you got. And one thing for what kickers do is they go to these camps with all these specific coaches, but it always turned out being whatever parent pays more money to that specialist guy, he ranks them higher in their rankings, and then the college coaches ask that kicking guy who to take, and they say that guy.
See, that's the crazy thing.
And I never believed, so I never did those camps because I never believed
You're a lunch pail guy from Summit, New Jersey. I'm not doing that.
So Miami comes and they're looking at me, and I didn't even go to their camp. I went to camps out at Michigan. I went to Stanford.
Why would you go all the way down to Miami, though?
What?
I'm saying, why would you go all the way down to Miami?
Well, because I had been going to all these different places that I was getting looks like Stanford, Michigan.
You went to Stanford?
I went and kicked out at Stanford, kicked out at Michigan, kicked at BC. At BC, my sophomore summer. That's when I won a competition out there, but that entire coaching staff got ripped out.
So you're like, all right, never mind.
So it's like, okay, I guess that's not going to happen.
Done.
Yeah. But I never went to a Miami camp, and it just happened I ended up going there. But, that was just because football took a front seat of everything and, just kind of put all the high school stuff away. I won a state championship my senior year in football. Won junior, I won a hockey state championship. And then in lacrosse, we won it like 2 or 3 years. It was.
So 2 things I want to mention real quick. One, he's talking about all these state championships and stuff. Yeah, he won a state championship in every sport he played in high school. He also holds the scoring record for your high school, right?
Yeah. Which
is, it's an interesting stat that a lot of kickers have for whatever school they play for. A lot of times they break the scoring record. So it's interesting, though. The other thing I wanted to mention, you mentioned like the politics and the specialist world and recruiting. It's crazy, and what I appreciate with you is, like, and I'm joking about you being a lunch pail guy, but you really were lunch pail. Like, these specialists, I know specialists that I can think of in my mind that are, like, they're going to all these classic specialist camps and, like, doing all this stuff, and there is a lot of politics in it. It's interesting with you. You're like, listen, put me at quarterback. I don't really care, whatever it may be, and then you just end up being a kicker in the NFL 8 years later. So it's really interesting. But I don't know if that math is right. Whatever the years are. The point is, Badge is getting all these offers. He's juicing himself up. But for some reason, and I always joke with him about it, he ends up at Fork Union Military Academy. So you can explain from the time that you started getting recruited to the time that you ended up at Fork Union Military Academy, why in the world did you go to a military school before Miami?
So I, by playing a lot of sports, not saying that this is a out for me, but I had played so many sports and I had been into so many state titles, which always would go into the beginning of months.
It actually matters, though. It actually does.
And in those beginning of the months would be the state championships, but also in the beginning of those months would be the ACT or SATs.
The boy was missing his ACTs.
So it wasn't that I was missing it. It's just I never would, if I could go back, I would put more emphasis on it and I would just try to get it done in high school.
Listen, you're lying if you say that. You are where you are now.
You're right. And
Maybe you would.
Okay, no, I had to go to Fork Union to get my test scores up so I could get into Miami. So, thing was in high school is I had a good time.
As you should.
Yeah, who didn't? I enjoyed every bit of high school. But I go to Fork Union to get my test scores up, and that place ended up being like a blessing in disguise, is the way a lot of people put it. So I thought that was perfect for me. I was able to reclassify because I was always young for my grade originally. So I became, I think the right grade that I should have been in. But this place was total buzz cut, salute the flag every morning, wearing a uniform, making your bed, took your cell phone away. It was, you're on an island in this place in Virginia. And, we were post-grad students, so it was kind of, we were on our own, but you're still taking orders from, some high school kids teaching you how to, shine your boots, or, you still have to follow in all these different types of rules, going to class, playing football.
Oh, you were playing at Fork.
Yeah.
You were kicking.
There's a team. I mean, I think it's in the wiki page, but it's some of the guys that have been there, like Plaxico Burress, Vinny Testaverde, Eddie George.
To Fork Union. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you're over here. You're sneaking looks at my note.
I mean, but I could have told you that without it. I mean,
Eddie George.
There's some good names that have come out of that school.
So, also, just to point out, this says at FAMU he was on the dean's list and was the number one ranked kicker. That was your coach, John Schumann.
Yeah, Coach Schumann.
So Coach Schumann,
legend.
Again, stick with me, listeners and viewers, because I'm looking at this off the cuff. But John Schumann was a kicker.
Was he?
At FAMU. It says he was playing for head coach Colonel, which is super funny, Colonel John Schumann. And it says at FAMU he was on the dean's list and was the number one ranked kicker in 24/7 sports.
Oh, no, that's me.
Rankings.
That's me. Not Colonel John Schumann.
Oh, yeah.
At FUMA, that's me.
Okay, that's slight dyslexia coming up.
Yeah, so I was
FAMU, FUMA.
Yeah, so I was on the dean's list, and then the number one ranked kicker is kind of funny because I was the only kicker in that specific class of being a post-grad guy.
Okay, that's actually hilarious. I mean, that's a little stat drop that you can give to people. Though it's the number one ranked kicker.
Not a big deal.
Longest field goal at Fork Union Military Academy, 58 yards. But this is what's interesting to me, and then we'll move on from Fork Union. Like, I feel like the perception of people who go to schools like this is that they don't get good grades. Some would say they're thugs. They don't take school seriously. They weren't good enough at sports. Like, when you came to the realization that you were going to Fork Union and you were going to go to a school like this in between high school and you're in Miami, what does that feel like?
I didn't know what to expect until I got there. And then it was tough when I saw my parents' car just drive off because, we were there before all my friends went to college.
When did you report? Do you remember?
It was early August. I think maybe August 15th or something like that. So all my buddies are going off to school to have fun, party, crush beers, whatever, have a good time.
And you're handing in your cell phone.
Here you go. Yeah, I'm handing them, getting a buzz cut, making my bed, and I'm waking up at 6 a.m. to salute the flag. So it was definitely a different experience, and it was tough at first, but you end up making some great friends at places like that. And like I said, it was a total blessing in disguise, and I wouldn't have changed it. I would go there again if I had to.
So we're going to move on from this, but give the folks a little nugget. like people that are in situations like you're in that are struggling with being able to get into schools. You knew you wanted to go to Miami. You've told me that when you were in high school, you were like, I'm going to Miami. You did something that is difficult. You went into adversity basically and went through it and then ended up in Miami. What would you tell to somebody in your same situation who may not have the grades but wants to go to a school like Miami?
You know, there's certain ways to do it. A lot of guys go to junior college, but you lose eligibility. A place like Fork Union, it's a no bullshit place, but you don't lose any eligibility, and you get a chance to get your grades up in a fashion that is capable for everybody. They help you out, and it's also another way of people trying to get extra recruit. You know, it's a lot of the guys there didn't know where they were going, and they were just trying to get more looks at a high school. And you
knew you were going to Miami.
Yeah, I knew. I just had to get my scores up, and I was going.
It's a grind, bro. Like I mean, I went straight from high school to Notre Dame, and we'll talk about that. I think this podcast, by the way,
this is a nice one.
This is going to be. I think this should be solely dedicated to you, and we'll come back to mine later. But we'll move on to that later. I can't imagine going to an in-between school. Like, that would be so tough for me. I'd be like, bro, I do not want to be here, let alone be saluting to some random cheesy dude yelling at me.
I mean, I'd be lying, and this is totally true. There's been a couple moments in life where I've just broke down. And, you know, I'll cry during movies and everything. Some things will get a tear out of me.
Tear jerkers.
I get emotional. But there's been only a couple times in my life where I just physically just broke down. You don't even know why. And that moment of uncertainty at Fork Union, you know, knowing what my friends were doing, you know, not being sure if I wanted to stay at this school, I just remember physically breaking down. And that was a tough moment.
No doubt.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're alone. You were on an island at first alone, and you have to step. That was where I really learned you have to step out of your comfort zone to really get anything really accomplished. So that was, you know, way out of my comfort zone. But I mean, I like I said, I wouldn't change a thing about it, and it was a total blessing that I went to a place like that.
I mean, it's deep and it's cheesy, but Gus Bradley, our defensive coordinator, always says, when you're uncomfortable, but you have great spirit, then you have great growth. And as cheesy as it is, you were very, very uncomfortable at Fork Union.
Yeah.
But you were optimistic, and we're going to move on to Miami because you knew you wanted to go to Miami, and you knew you could and would if you got your mind right, and you had great growth. So you go to Miami. You knew it was in the works the whole time, and you have an unreal Miami career. I mean, first in everything pretty much, which we'll get to. But when you get to Miami, what does it look like initially when you're a true freshman? Are you kicking immediately? What is the school grind like? What is that transition from military school to an actual university? Just kind of take us through it.
So what's funny is after Fork Union, I was like, if I could get through this, I could get through anything.
You're like, if I can get through this, I'll be in the NFL in 6 years.
That's not what I was telling myself at the time because I was just so juiced up about Miami.
Right.
But if I could get through that, I could get through anything.
What a transition, too, by the way. Like, you go from Fuma to Miami.
So it was almost like I'm not going to say it's easy, but it was just so much, you know, it was just such a better experience that I walked into. And everything didn't come easy. It was still tough learning and picking up things and learning the whole routine of working out, going to your summer classes, going to meals on time, creating friendships with your class, just trying to prove yourself to everybody, which is a big thing your freshman year. But it was
no doubt.
I just always told myself, I would tell myself, like, hey, you went to Fork Union. Whatever you think may be tough here is going to be super easy compared to that.
Bro, you went to, like, when I showed up at Notre Dame the first day, like, you're saying you were homesick. We'll talk about it when it's my turn, but I was, like, super homesick. So you were, like, showing up, and you're, like, already kind of over that because you had a transition period.
Yeah, and I didn't go to Miami until the summer semester because I finished Fork Union in winter right before that spring semester started. And that's when I kind of went home and I took lifting seriously and I really put on some weight because I was like 161.
Soaking wet with a cement helmet,
Exactly.
161.
161, and then I put on like 20 pounds going into Miami. So I was like at $180 where I'm kind of still around right now. That's when I put that weight on. But going into Miami, I remember that summer, I'm trying to prove myself as a kicker. You're still kind of just a guy in people's eyes. Like not everybody knows you. And I remember the head coach coming up to me at one point in the beginning of summer workouts and seeing some kicks. And Coach Golden, Al Golden, comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, Mike, if you don't want to kick, we can move you to safety here and we can put you on
At Miami?
Yeah.
What?
We can move you to safety and put you on like scout team stuff."
Thinking
that I would just be a scout team safety guy.
Let's
kind of just like pushed off to the side. So I took that kind of
took it to heart.
And I was like, I'm an athlete, sure, but no, I'm here to kick. And I kicked that whole summer, that camp, and I just remember I'm gonna prove these guys wrong. And then, not only prove the guys wrong that didn't think I could kick, but the guys back home who all didn't think that I was going to Miami because I had to go to Fork Union before. There's a lot of doubters back home. My dad always reminds me of, how proud he is and, how we proved these guys wrong.
Good old Chris.
But I just remember, I think it came second or third game that season. Or no, before that, sorry. Right before the Louisville game. There ended up being a conversation between me, the starting kicker at Miami at the time, and Coach Golden. And he said, "Hey, the competition for kicking is going to come down to the warm-up at Louisville."
I mean, let's just pause real quick. That is like, for everybody listening, as a player, that is the most compromising situation you can be put in. But that's irrelevant. Continue. He puts you in this compromising situation before the game.
So, yeah. And this is a big game. This was the Labor Day game. It was the only one on TV on that Monday. And I remember being nervous as hell, and I was also super excited because I also thought I was going to go out there and be the starting kicker. So we go out to the warm up. I have a great warm up. I'm like, oh, I got this.
You're juiced up.
I'm going to be
you're
starting.
Like in your mind, you're like, Fork Union came from the bottom. Now I'm here.
Yeah. So I kind of take a little bit longer, just stretching out whatever after the warm up, and little do I know is that he's already pulled the other kicker into his room, and he says that the other guy's going to be going. Pulls me into the room and says, "Hey, we're going to go with the veteran on this one, and then I'll see. We'll talk more later throughout the week." So I'm bummed.
Well, not only are you bummed, you're frustrated. You're like, come on.
I mean, I'm still frustrated, but at the same time, I was just also super excited that I traveled and I was there with the team in Louisville.
That's true. You're a little guy. You're a little guy at that point.
Yeah, but I wanted to play, just being the competitor I was.
No doubt.
And we get there, we lost that game, but one of my good buddies, Brad Kyle, got his first start, so it was cool to see him out there, a true freshman quarterback. But we get home. Later that week, Coach Golden calls me into his office and says, "Hey, we're thinking about redshirting you." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't want a red shirt. Some guys look at red shirts and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to take advantage of this."
Don't get it twisted. I didn't redshirt either, but
it's based on your opinion of what you think you're capable of doing. I always thought some guys embrace the red shirt and they do get better, and the coach actually believes that they need a year to get stronger, get more into the playbook. But as a kicker, I'm like, I know I can play and I know I can beat this guy.
That's true. I mean, kicking is pretty much like you either are going to make the field goal or you're not going to make the field goal. It's black and white in competition.
Yeah. So then the next game comes and the guy's still kicking, and I'm still thinking I'm going to redshirt.
So we got your schedule. That's Florida A&M.
Yes.
Next game.
Florida A&M, we boat raced them like usual. But then we got
41-7.
Who was it? And then Arkansas
State. Michael Badgley makes his debut against Arkansas State.
So the funny part was that my mom came out for that game, but she was just out there to see me at school. And she had no clue because I didn't even know until after the warm-up. Coach Golden goes, "Badge, you're starting." And I'm like, oh, okay. But
so are you stressed? Are you? I mean, that's like kind of a bomb. Like
it's
coach.
It's nerve wracking when you get that first call. You're in.
It's almost better to get it right before the game, though.
That's true.
You don't have to think about it.
Yeah. I think that game was just all extra points anyway or whatever. So it wasn't a big deal. But I remember my mom being so excited. My dad called me immediately. He was like crying, calling me on the phone. He was going nuts. So, but then after that game, I never looked back.
It was the beginning of your career, connected on the first career field goal against Nebraska, hitting a 34-yarder.
Yeah, so that was the following week after that start out of nowhere during warm-ups. So I got my first full week of practice that Nebraska week at Nebraska in front of 95,000 people.
Talk to him. Did you guys win?
No, we lost.
Nice. 41-31. Good game, though.
So at that point, we were only down 10, and it was a 37-yard field goal. And Monday night announcer right now, Joe Tessitore, was calling the game. I think my dad still has this saved in his phone. So it was a 37-yarder, my first field goal attempt in the fourth quarter. Place is like static. I can't hear.
I mean, I can't imagine.
My face mask is rattling. This is to put us within a score. I go out there and just hit it right down freaking Broadway.
What a beast.
And Joe Tessitore's call goes, first career field goal attempt, and it's pure. And it was like
pure.
It was the coolest thing to hear.
You also go 4 for 4 on PAT attempts that game. It's crazy because as a field goal kicker, like you're talking about how loud it was, that's like one of the only positions where you line up and it's like everyone is yelling. Like maybe quarterback third down, an away game, they're yelling. But like everybody is like, let's yell as loud as we possibly can to distract him from making this field goal. Everybody's waving their hands. And you have that in Nebraska for the first time. And you're 19 years old and you're like, wow, all right, we're here.
Yeah.
That's kind of intense. So you move on, you ball out that year. You pretty much ball out every year. And you can kind of just take us through the next couple years because, unfortunately, Wiki is in depth, but for a field goal kicker, it's not like they go into crazy, in-depth information. But I want you to just tell me this because I think this will be interesting to the listeners. Throughout the 3 following years, because no doubt that Nebraska field goal was the biggest one of your freshman year, just because it was your first year at Nebraska.
Yeah.
But throughout the other years, like, what were some of the big field goals? Like, my dad asked you when he was here, he's like, Money, have you ever been nervous when kicking? Like, just take us through some of those kicks where you would be nervous and just, like, let people know what it feels like to be a kicker in a big-time kick, in a big-time game.
So the way I've always seen it, and this is how I remember, all freshman year kicks, I was confident, but at the same time I was nervous. Right. Because I was still a young guy. Wanted to prove everyone on the team that I could do it, and I wanted to prove to the coach that I'm the guy for the next 4 years. And I was playing for the wrong reasons, and I was nervous more than than I should have been.
Well, I want you to elaborate on that. When you say you're playing for the wrong reasons, what do you mean?
I wasn't playing for myself. I wasn't like enjoying it. It was more of like I'm trying to make this kick so that they think I'm good enough each time.
Do you know what person we interviewed that gave us that piece of advice to not worry about coaches?
Nick DeZubnar.
Well, Nick, yes, and Austin Eckler. And he was like,
that's when he said he made the jump, and that's kind of what I'm getting at is
right.
So my sophomore year comes into that summer, and I've established myself as the guy. I had some confidence. Coach calls me up saying, you ready to go? This is your season. You're excited, yada, yada, yada. And it just kind of gave me the confidence and I'm the guy. And I was excited.
You're not, well, at that point, do they have another kicker?
I mean, there was some guys in there. Obviously that there was constant competition because there's always those kickers in the back that are, college. You know what I mean? So, it was one of those situations, but it was nice to know that I was the guy. Sophomore year, got the mullet going.
We'll have to insert a picture of the mullet.
Yeah, got the mullet going that first year. But that season, I remember first couple games, it wasn't the same as freshman year. I was just super juiced up to be out there. I was excited. We were rolling the first couple, cupcake games.
Went 25 for 30 that year.
And then we go into Nebraska. and because we had the home and home with them. So
Tell them about it.
So that year, I go, what was it, 5 for 5? Is that what it was?
Set career mark and school record with 5 made field goals against Nebraska, including a 28-yarder in overtime for a Miami win.
So we were 4 field goals during regulation that game, and I remember I was just on one. But during games, I don't usually know how many I'm going or what the distance is and whatever.
You're just going in there. I
just got my line, and I'm trying to hit that line.
What a beast!
So that game, I remember going out in overtime, and they didn't even tell me that they were about to center the ball just so we could kick the game winner. So I see them centering the ball. I'm like, oh, I guess we're going out there. I remember running out there, and right before that kick, I was kind of shaking. My legs were shaking a little bit. I was like, this is it.
Doubt.
Yeah, overtime, Nebraska,
that's like the first
big game.
time in your career where it's like, Badge, we make or break.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
So it was a big deal. And I remember going out there, I was shaking a little bit, but I made it. It kind of tailed a little right at the end, but it was already through. Place goes nuts. Huge party that night at my place. It was incredible night.
So now Badge is the party host.
I mean, listen, we had a sick house that year. 7.
He's like, listen, if you would have been there.
It was a great house. But after that game, I remember running out onto the field goals, and I just felt confident. It was never a moment of uncertainty or being nervous or shaking. I was just confident.
Yeah,
running out after that point, and from that point on, I was confident.
I'm trying to in this interview think of questions that people would be interested in, because I want to ask you this, and I always wonder this. It's funny because in the background you see our in-house producer walking by. For those who are watching, but I always wonder this: when it's coming down to the wire and you're in overtime, like we're talking about this Nebraska game, and the head coach is ultimately making the decision, are we going to kick the field goal or are we going to go for it? Like, what is going through your mind? I mean, literally happened this past game. Like, I'm always wondering, what is Badge thinking about right now? Is it like, please put me out there? Or is it like, if I go out there, I'm going to make it, whatever happens?
You know, for instance, there's certain situations where I'm just thinking about situational football, you know, and what we should do. But as soon as we get the ball back on offense, whether we're about to punt return or
you got to
kick
get your
return,
mind right.
I put my helmet on and I'm like, okay, at any moment here, I can go out there and have to kick an extra point or go for a field goal.
Right.
So I'm kicking every down. First down, I'm getting a kick in. Second down, I'm getting a kick in. Third down comes, I go and watch the play because I'm like, okay, well after this, I'm gonna have to go kick a field goal. What goes through my head mainly really is, let me do my job.
Right. I mean, that's all of us.
Yeah. So
that's all of us.
So my main thing of what goes through my head is, okay, time to do your job. Let's go do it.
Yeah. It's
just,
and
it's disappointing that you don't get so many ways to make up for your mistakes. Like for instance, 55-yarder. I wanted to bury that so bad, and when it hits the upright, it's just so devastating.
I'm sure.
But there was no better feeling knowing that I was going to get another chance. And on 4th and 11, Mike Williams goes up top.
Makes one of the craziest catches I've seen live.
Gets an incredible catch, and I get another chance from 46 yards out, and I fucking buried it. And I had no doubt in my mind that I was going to make that kick because I wanted that situation. I want those pressure moments because you have to embrace those.
Talk to them.
You have to embrace those as a kicker.
You have to. And I think it's even...
If you shy away from those,
you're never going to be good.
Almost at any position, but especially kicker. If you shy away from those, you'll never succeed.
Yeah. It is interesting, though, because kicker is unique. So, like, you can be the type of player as a D lineman that gets nervous in those type of situations, or maybe doesn't perform as well in those type of situations, and you can still be super successful. Kickers, like, if you miss, and then we're going to continue back on the Miami journey, but if you miss those big-time field goals because you can't handle the pressure, you're not going to have a career in the NFL.
No doubt. And it's a numbers game. It's kind of like baseball, or, you know,
it's straightforward.
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
Percentages, but yeah. I mean, you don't get too many chances, so you got to make the most out of all of them. So
we're still in Miami here. So, by the way, you're a good interview. You really are. I mean, we've interviewed tons of people, but you're a good interview. So Badge pretty much kills the rest of his career. So I'm just reading through this. Next Next year, you start to move up on the record board. You also you're hitting what it says is you're tied third for most single season kicks or field goals made in program history. You move into third place in program history for overall field goals made, and you hit the game winner in the Russell Athletic Bowl. We're not going to talk about why Miami, one of the most historic schools ever, is in the Russell Athletic Bowl.
Well, the Russell Athletic, I didn't kick a game winner in there. We routed West Virginia. I had a 30-yarder in that game.
Okay, you just hit a 30-yarder. That's true. You didn't hit the game winner. Yeah. You could have went with it, though.
I should have, but then they would just check the wiki and be like, what the hell is Isaac talking about?
Then they'd look at my wiki and be like, there's nothing. Continue. So either way, you have a good junior year. Senior year, this is where you really start to take over on these record boards. And then I'm reading some of the stuff. You're selected first all ACC first team. And you can go through some of the stuff too because you know.
Yeah, I think I was first team all ACC. I have the points record at Miami, I think.
Who'd you move past?
I think it was Carlos Huerta.
Huerta, no doubt. Move past Huerta for the most points scored in Miami history with 6 points in the final game, the Capital One Orange Bowl against Wisconsin. And you ended the career with 403 points scored. And I'm just going to read his final team records as a Miami Hurricane. Career points scored first, career field goals first, field goals in the season first, field goal attempts in the season first, field goal
in games 5
first, longest first, tied, but still first. So you had, like, as a kicker, as good of a career as you possibly could have had in college. Because you literally are first in all the record boards.
I mean, I never looked at it that way because it always just seemed like it was like one kick at a time to me.
No doubt.
So when those records started coming, obviously when you kick a long field goal, you're like, okay, this has potential to be, the record or whatever. But you just wanted those situations in general.
Right.
But yeah, I never looked at those, and they just kind of added up, and being there for 4 years.
That's a little players talk, though. Like, at some point, you got to be a little juiced up. That at the end of the day, like, you're first in all those, and not only are you first, like, you're first by what I would think is significant numbers.
Well,
I feel like these are records that are going to be hard to beat.
But here's the thing: is like records are meant to be broken, right?
Unless you're the Badger. So either way, Badge has got an iconic, and we'll call it iconic for the pod, an iconic college career. And he moves on. Draft process for a kicker, you can talk about that quickly. I mean, I would think it's pretty much just you're going to continue to kick. If teams want you to kick, you're going to kick. You're going to kick in Senior Bowl. You're going to kick in Combine.
Yeah, so I was invited to the Senior Bowl, was at the Combine, kicked well at all those, kicked well at the Pro Day, and I was pretty confident in myself. I thought I was going to get drafted.
You're the kicker who thinks he's going to get drafted, which does happen.
Yeah, no doubt it happened. So I thought I had a good enough resume, and I thought that some of these coaches would kind of see my mentality and my mindset, and I think that they would, choose me on that. But the only team that gave me a shot was the Colts. They picked me up in free agency after the draft.
It is. I mean, I always mess with Badge because, like, in my mind, I'm like, kickers don't get drafted. But you're coming at it from a competitive headspace, and you're like, no, you should draft me. I had a great college career. Like I said, these kickers hold these records. You're going to be scoring a lot of points for teams. It makes total sense that you draft a kicker. But you get signed in free agency to the Colts. You go through preseason. You end up not being with the Colts at the end of preseason.
Yeah, they cut my ass.
But what did you learn, one, from being with the Colts, and not to take away from you, but I want to ask you about being with Vinatieri. Vinatieri's quoted saying he's a good kid and a really good kicker. He's got a nice leg, and he's always doing a good job picking my brain. So that's what Vinatieri said about him. And also tell the people what it feels like to be cut, because not many people know that feeling. So Vinatieri and being cut.
So when I walked into the Colts, I remember being like, holy shit, I'm going to be with Adam Vinatieri, who was...
What year is he on, 24?
24th season now.
We're both 24, so you can do the math.
But I remember walking into that place saying, holy shit, I'm going to be with Adam Vinatieri. And he was the only kicker that I ever really gave a damn about. I don't really watch kickers. I don't really follow kickers. I never saw the point in that. I'm just a sports guy.
Well, and, I mean, you're either going to make the kicker or you're not. Vinatieri's either going to make the kicker or he's not.
Right.
What can you really learn from watching him?
Well, exactly. But I knew Vinatieri, and the biggest thing I wanted to learn was just how he was, around a locker room or what he was like mentally. So it was just kind of seeing his mannerisms around the place, how he got along with all the guys. And he was just one of the absolute greatest guys I've ever met, funniest guys I've ever been around, and just a genuine
locker room guy,
and a great football player. And I don't say kicker because he is a great football player.
He is. And, I mean, I'm learning more from interviewing you in this podcast, but like I said, he's scoring points for the Colts. So, with that being said, no doubt football player. It's more than just a specialist. He's got to be number one on Colts all time for scoring.
Yeah, I think he is. He's been there like
by
13 or 14 years. And then with the Patriots, he won him a couple Super Bowls, I think, on his leg. So, not bad.
Listen, forget Vinatieri. We're talking about you. So you're grinding. I mean, at this point, you got to know kind of like, look, they're not cutting Vinatieri. I'm here to get film out. I'm here to get better and learn from him. But ultimately, at the end of it, they say, Badge, can you bring up your surface, even though you don't have a surface? And they waive you.
So my mindset going in there was, I'm going to try to win the job. I knew what I was walking into.
You have to say that, though.
Exactly.
That's players talk.
Exactly. I knew what I was walking into. I mean, I'm going up against Vinatieri. The guy's got a hell of a resume, and he's a beast. The best kicker to ever do it. And he's had a Hall of Fame career. But I knew it was a chance for me to get tape. And so did Vinatieri. So we were on the same page. So
what a homie. He knew what was up.
No doubt. And he's had a couple guys go through there before. He's had some other great kicker names go through that whole process with him, and they get picked up and go on to have good careers. But, I would I would kick every other day off of Adam, and then during practice, and then in preseason games, he would always give me the second half.
What a beast.
And then in the last game, I got the full game because he was just being a pro vet, and he took the game off. But it was just he knew exactly what was up, and
I knew trying to help you out.
I knew what I had to get accomplished to find my way into this league. So yeah, I got the film, but at the end of the day, I knew what was coming at the end of preseason.
So what was coming was getting released.
Yeah,
and it's the worst part of being in the NFL, but it's the thing that is probably one of the biggest drivers, understanding that you are always competing. But Badge is talking about, I got the film casually. Badge didn't miss. Every time he put his foot on a ball, he didn't miss. All preseason, correct?
Yeah, all preseason there in the Colts, I didn't miss.
So Badge, like his college career, while he was in preseason, put up the best possible resume you can possibly have as a kicker. And he goes home. He's planning trips with his buddies. Whatever happens, happens. I'm going to Dublin no matter what.
No matter what.
And that's a little bit of an inside joke, but he ends up getting picked up by the Chargers in week 6. And he comes in, and I remember they signed you, and all we know is this white dude from Miami's coming, and he hadn't missed a kick all preseason. That's the only thing I knew about you, that you had missed a kick for preseason.
So you knew that?
That's what I knew, and I knew that the Chargers traditionally had so much trouble with kickers. I've been here for 3 years. I think you're our 4th kicker, maybe actually probably 5th since I've been here. Because from Lambeau until now, There's been a lot. And Badge comes in, he makes a name for himself, he creates this whole brand around him, and you've really had a good career here as a Charger. So let's do this. Tell us about waiting on the couch, waiting for a phone call, planning trips. When you finally get the phone call from the Chargers, how does that feel?
Yeah. So I mean, I wasn't really sure what to expect. Whether a team would pick me up right away or if I'd get a shot right away.
But you're just waiting.
Exactly. So a couple weeks go by. I get one call for a workout out in Oakland, and they go with some other guy, some schmuck. I was pissed about it.
Some schmuck.
And I had to fly all the way across the country for them to tell me that I didn't get the part. So I'm pissed.
And this is like week 5.
Fly all the way back to New Jersey. And I remember hanging out in Hoboken, telling my buddies, I swear to God, if I get another call to go to California,
I'm not going.
I'm not going to go. I mean, I didn't actually say that, but I said I'd be pissed.
He's packing his bags.
Next thing you know, on a friggin' Monday night, Tuesday night, I got a call in Hoboken saying, hey, you got to work out for the Chargers.
The Chargers.
So I'm like, oh, great, I got to go to fucking California again. And I fly out there. And I remember sitting in the hotel. It was a later workout. I was still East Coast time. But I just remember sitting there. I'm saying, I'm not going to let this opportunity slip. I'm going to go out there, and I'm going to fucking do it. And I'm going up against a couple other guys, and I
guys that we've already had. Like those were guys that were in our locker room.
Yeah, and I knew I was like, I'm just gonna go kick my own kick, and that's what I did. I went out there and I just kicked some fucking ass, and they liked me enough to keep me around. Next thing you know, they're asking if I got my passport ready to go to Cleveland because
and
I'm
you're
going
like,
to
literally,
London.
I have whatever you need. Like, where are the papers to sign?
Yeah. So before you know it, practice Thursday with the team. They had signed me.
And you kick in Cleveland.
Go to Cleveland, a hostile environment,
No doubt.
shitty grass, and we kick a bunch of extra points and
5.
one field goal at the end.
Yep.
44 yards, and I'll never forget that day in my life because I remember saying, there's no way they kick a field goal here. We're up by a lot. Next thing you know, field goal, you're on. I'm like, oh, shit, here we go.
So he does his thing, and next game you come out, you ball out. 2 field goals, 2 extra points.
Yeah, that was in London. That was tough. I mean, everybody was dead tired.
So for everybody listening, think about this. 2 field goals, 3 points each, 6 points, 2 extra points, 8 points. That's already a touchdown. That's how these kickers rack up these points. Previous game, 5 extra points. That's 5 points. You guys get the point. But he gets put on practice squad after that, which I don't care what anybody says. Being a practice squad kicker is the easiest job in America.
Easiest job in America.
Like, you cannot have an easier job in the world than being a practice squad kicker. But, again, compromising situation for a kicker because for both you and the kicker that was there, it's just like this weird tension. And you're sitting there like, I'm on practice squad as a kicker. Like, what are we going to do here?
No doubt there's a weird tension, but at the same time, it's like, this is my livelihood now. I'm not here to feel bad for anybody.
Now he's a beast.
I mean, I was trying to, I'm trying to make my own, trying to get my name.
No doubt.
It's like.
You got to do you. And so Bads goes on to have, he gets taken off practice squad, gets pulled back up. You can reference the interview I had when he got pulled back up. I was like, I know he's got a killer instinct. He's going to be great.
That was a cool interview.
And he goes on, you set Chargers records. You hit the 59-yarder against the Bengals, and you're named AFC Player of the Week, 1 week, maybe a couple weeks.
I don't know.
We'll say 1 week. And you just really have a really good first year. And then you've had a good second year. You dealt with some adversity with injury, but we don't need to get into that. Yeah. The point is your pro career has been unreal so far. I think it says you've been 93% on field goals since being in the NFL. Pretty good as a kicker.
Yeah, there's a standard set there. Dealt with some injury this beginning of this season, so hopefully I get a couple more kicks here to end out the year strong. But it's just been an absolute blessing that this organization has not only stuck with me, but believed me and gave me a shot.
Yeah, and I'll pump Badger's tires a little bit more. Like I said, it's not very often that you have specialists come in a locker room, at least in my experience, and that are really contributors to the locker room. And I would say you are a legitimate contributor to the locker room. And I think it matters. We always talk about it. There's players, we don't have to mention specific players, but there's players in NFL locker rooms, Bads can chime in, and you're like, listen, if the guy can't play, he's still a locker room guy. Now, you can play, but being a locker room guy in the NFL is so important. And to have a specialist that is a locker room guy is super rare. You've been in weird situations with specialists that are locker room guys, Vinatieri and Donnie.
Donnie, yeah.
But I feel like it's pretty rare. Before you, it's rare to have a locker room guy.
Yeah.
So Badge does that. But either way, we're not going to do my interview because it wouldn't make sense to go 4 hours.
This was long. Holy cow.
Bro, I'm telling you, it might go down as one of our better interviews.
This was a good one. I think it's good that we're getting our stories out as well.
Yeah, you guys can stay tuned for mine. But I think it's been fun. I'm glad you shared your story. But stay tuned. We're going to have stuff in the next 4 weeks. Now we're back in Mike and Ike mode.
We got some good interviews coming up. One that we're super excited about, and I'm going to shout it out right now because there will be no holds back.
Oh
because
my
Mike
gosh.
Mike Pouncey has already agreed to have a podcast with us where he tells all. So it's going to be exciting.
And we want to get to the locker room talk. We want to get to the root of the stories and experiences. But either way, I'm glad we're back at it. Yeah. So either way, tune in, YouTube, Mike and Ike Show, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Mike and Ike Show. You can find us on everything. Just be on the lookout.
Let's go.
All right.